Reagan, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. George Gilder.
Thank you, Steve. Brings back a lot of memories, that great man. I've had a lot of guidance on gold over the decades. I'm a very slow learner standing in front of you. If Steve had done this conference 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have been a very skittish advocate of gold. And my conversion to the cause, I think, in my vanity, conveys some lessons. And the lesson is that the case for gold, as it has been presented in general, as some sort of commodity basis for money, is not fully convincing and does not, in fact, partake of the truth. It's, in fact, the opposite of the truth. And I came to that recognition through a different path. I was guided by Steve Forbes and Lou Lehrman and Jack Kemp and Judy Shelton and all kinds of people, but I still did not fully recognize why gold worked and why Bitcoin in turn can work on the internet, until I read a paper by Satoshi Nakamoto launching the Bitcoin movement. And Satoshi's key worry as he contrived Bitcoin was that Bitcoin would be gobbled up by Moore's Law, by the power of new technology and entrepreneurship and learning in the economy, that it would essentially become part of what it measured. And the key point of any unit of account, any measuring stick, any metric, is that it cannot be part of what it measures. And gold as a commodity is part of what it measures. And thus, because gold demonstrably succeeded for hundreds of years, enabled the Industrial Revolution, was endorsed and embraced by the greatest physicist in history in all possibility, Isaac Newton, who in fact made critical contributions to launching the gold standard, means that gold must have other sources of its value than merely that it's shiny and used in jewelry and used in electronics as a superconductor. It's got all these virtues. But this is why it shouldn't be money, not why it should be money. And looking at Bitcoin and Nakamoto, this anonymous or pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto, and his rationale for Bitcoin, his chief goal was to create an algorithm that counteracted Moore's Law and thus left Bitcoin's value exclusively reliant on the one element in the universe that can't be manipulated, that can't be hoarded, that can't be stolen, that can't be readily redistributed, that doesn't lie, that's based on entropy, and that is time. Time is what grows more valuable when all the capitalism makes everything else abundant. The residual resource that becomes more scarce is time. And time doesn't change. And it's because Bitcoin is exclusively related, its value, to the passage of time, that it's solid and can be the foundation for a new money and a new layer for the internet, a layer 8 of internet infrastructure based on transactions and trusts and facts and covenants, all the kinds of phenomena that the internet can't currently provide in its current regime. How is gold based on time? Gold is based on time the same way Bitcoin is based on time, and that is that as technology, as learning, as capitalist creativity has made gold increasingly capable of extracting gold from the ground, gold has become more remote, deeper under the ground, harder to extract from thinner deposits. And because the difficulty of extracting gold has increased almost exactly in pace with the increase in the capabilities of the technologies to mine gold, all the things that gold might measure get canceled out. And you're left with the time to extract it. And so gold is based on the metric of time, the one element in the universe that really can't be manipulated. And thus, it's the only possible foundation for a really reliable measurement. All these ideas of currency cocktails and commodity combinations and targets of information, of inflation measurements are all futile and can't work. They just focus all the emphasis of politics on manipulating the basket. And so it really does not change fundamentally the problem of having a measuring stick that's rooted in nothing but oceanic flux. So gold is based on time, as Bitcoin is based on time, but I wasn't fully convinced about the need for gold and a need for transformation of monetary policy until I contemplated seriously the alternative to Bitcoin and gold. And that alternative is the current international currency trading system. People have actually had the impotence to claim that gold is a burden on the economy, when today the largest industry in the world, the largest human activity in the world in terms of monetary transactions is the international currency trading system, floating currencies, the alternative to gold and Bitcoin. And how's it working, floating currencies? Walter Wriston, who was one of the ones who delayed my conversion to gold by several years, I've helped write a book for Walter Wriston called The Twilight of Sovereignty. And he celebrated what he called the information standard, implemented by computers, and more draconian and thorough in its scrutiny of economic and monetary policies around the world than gold or any other possible system. And his mistake was he thought that having the currency trading system all embroiled with the world economy all around the world was actually a good thing. That having the measuring stick part of what it measures was supposed to be good. But that necessarily cast the world economy adrift on this oceanic flood of currency trading that's now 100 times larger than all the stock market trading in the world put together, 25 times larger than all the trade in goods and services. And still, it's more volatile, it's more irregular in its prices than the economic phenomena that it's supposed to measure. So here you waste this fabulous amount of energy and produce nothing of value. And that's what really convinced me that, that this was the time for gold. However, there was one other factor that's worth keeping in mind, and that is the gigantic raid on the future that the Fed has been conducting. I mean, it is just egregious. Zero interest rates, zero out the future. They steal the next generation's patrimony to bid up existing assets today, while at the same time jeopardizing all the processes that might create a yield to pay back the debt. And so what we've seen in the last 10 years, while I was nodding off a lot of the time, was a fabulous raid on the future, which is almost unprecedented in the history of the human race. Hundreds of trillions of dollars raided from the future to bid up our existing measly assets in the present. And all the defined benefit programs wiped out, the pensions, the yield of savings, everything eclipsed in order to pursue these monetary goals from day to day that actually trivialize and debauch economic effort. So this is a great moment, this meeting here, and I hope we can launch a movement that really can transform the world and seize back the future for us. Thank you, and our children.